Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Monday morning to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Legislative activity in the United States House of Representatives postponed this week after Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot Saturday in Tucson. You know that by now. The Democrat critically wounded in the attack that killed 6 people, including a federal judge and a 9-year-old girl. Here's the latest from correspondent Terry Moore.
The Tucson tragedy shook Congress to its core.
An attack on one who serves is an attack on all who serve.
Republican House Speaker John Boehner.
Such acts of violence have no place in our society.
Needless to say, congressional leaders and Capitol Police will be spending a lot of time this week analyzing security.
All of us in our roles in service to our fellow citizens comes with a risk.
Security is provided to the top members of the congressional leadership chain, but it would be extremely difficult to assign full-time protection to the more than 500 rank-and-file lawmakers in the House and the Senate. I'm Terry Moore in Washington.
That's exactly what we'll talk with Congressman Pete Hoekstra about a little bit later in this program. We'll have a number of guests from Arizona and involved in the Arizona story. But Congressman Hoekstra has said for a long time that members of Congress, once they're back in their district, really don't have any security. In Washington, it's a little bit of a different story, a secure environment. But once they're back in their districts, they are in a bit of danger, and certainly a lot of danger in this case. Paul Birmingham, the news director from 790 KNST in Arizona, will join us a little bit later in the program, as will Congressman Hoekstra. And we are going to talk this morning, too, with Nancy Palmer McKeague. She is the wife of federal Judge David McKeague, and they knew very well the now deceased federal Judge John Roll, who was killed in that murderous attack in Arizona on Saturday, so stay tuned for that. Gary Austin, we're going to talk also with Brian Morley, an attorney at Fraser, Trebilcock, Davis, and Dunlap, and he comes from law enforcement, and we'll talk about whether the death penalty is in order in this case. And Daniel Stone from Newsweek magazine will be here. There are gun control activists saying it's time to reform weapons laws in the United States. This after the shooting on Saturday. In fact, one of them is Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy, the Democrat from New York. She was elected to Congress after her husband was gunned down and her son seriously injured in a shooting on a Long Island commuter train back in 1993. And people are saying now that people with a history of mental instability, just like the alleged shooter from this weekend, should not be able to buy a gun. I didn't know that you could buy a gun if you had a history of mental instability, but that's one of the things that we'll clearly talk about this morning.
Well, for sure. And, incidents like this, Michael Patrick, really call all of this into attention again. And I think, as you pointed out earlier, these congressional leaders, politicians, and not just in Congress, but on a local level too, they're so easily accessible. And when you see something like this and you hear about it and the tragedy involved with this terrible shooting, you just have to figure, are these folks too accessible? Are they too much in contact, too close to those who are average Joe and Jane on Main Street, who you never know what could happen next? And I think this incident will certainly change how these elected officials go about their business. They're going to be thinking about it.
Now, lawmen going through the home of this suspected assassin, I don't think really we can say alleged and suspected, but we know that it was him, apparently found a document detailing his plans to attack the Arizona Democratic Congresswoman. There was an envelope in a safe with handwriting that said, "I planned ahead, assassination, and Giffords." And so that's what they found. Now, you mentioned members of Congress and how they go about business. There's a conservative member of Arizona's congressional delegation, and he's calling for greater respect among political rivals. It's Congressman Trent Franks, who praised his colleague Gabrielle Giffords and joined other public figures in asking for the heated rhetoric to be dialed back.
The best way for us to do that is to recognize that each person, regardless of their political persuasion, is a child of God. And when we recognize that about each other, sometimes I think it not only makes us be kinder, but it makes us really refocus the whole debate.
And Franks has described his dealings with Giffords, who was on the opposite ends of the political spectrum from him. So what was it like as a Republican to be dealing with a Democrat? Here's what he said.
There has never been an unkind word or a terse communication or any sort of acrimony ever passed between myself and Gabrielle Giffords, and I doubt that has happened on too many occasions with anyone. She is just a very decent, precious soul.
And obviously the thoughts and prayers of the country go out for her and the people who lost family members in that hideous crime. Gary Austin, what else is going on in the news?
Well, we want to make note, too, President Obama this morning, 11 o'clock, our time, calling for a moment of silence to remember, this terrible incident. And, boy, you just have to wonder, as we go ahead here, if those in Congress, any elected official, I don't care if it's national or local, if they're gonna take a hard look at this and just wonder if they are too easily accessible to those in public. So in any event, the investigation goes on. Jared Loughner is the fellow's name who's been accused of this, and he's got a court appearance today, facing, as you can imagine, a wide range of charges. Well,
ironically,
yes.
too, Gary, in Florida's Bay District, the school board, they're preparing to go back for their first meeting since there was a shooting at the meeting in December. The suspect, Clay Duke, remember on December 14th, walked into the meeting, shot at the board members. He was shot at, ultimately took his own life. It was all captured on video, and the board is due to meet this week for the first time since that shooting incident took place in Florida. And speaking of the South, if you're traveling today on Delta Airlines and you're going anywhere through the Atlanta area, you may want to check ahead about your flight and be prepared to be frustrated because there's a winter storm moving into North Georgia. That could bring 5 inches of snow into metro Atlanta. They're not usually able to handle that sort of thing. 6 in the mountains, and there's going to be a changeover from snow to sleet. So Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport has canceled a lot of flights in advance. So I know we have a lot of travelers, especially in Michigan, who use Delta Airlines, so plan ahead if that's what you're going to do. And you know what? There's big news in Detroit this week, isn't there, in the state of Michigan, Gary Austin, in the way of a North American International Auto Show?
Yes, that is the big news, and boy, folks are coming in from all over the world for this. And we understand, too, Michael Patrick, it's different this year when compared to last year and the year before, because so many of those involved, the automakers and others who have displays and what have you, they started scaling back. But now those who run things, they say, nope, that was then, this is now. And they're really gearing up to really, spend more money on these displays and make them lavish the way they used to. At least that's what we're being told here as the charity preview is coming up, and then, which raises a lot of money for worthy causes here. And then, then everybody starts gathering around Detroit. What a big moneymaker this is for the state and for the city as for the big auto show. And it's going to be gearing up this week. Also in Detroit, we should note here, too, the Batman movie, as popular as these have been.
Yes.
Now word has it.
You're kidding.
That, yes, the third Batman movie could be in, take a guess, what city?
Detroit?
You betcha.
All right.
Could be the next setting. That's the buzz. Several news outlets are reporting this. The third installment of the Batman franchise, The Dark Knight Rises, could start filming in the city of Detroit this spring.
Do they need me?
They might. I bet you they would need plenty of extras. And just
No.
imagine-
I don't want
What?
to be an extra in a Batman
Sorry.
movie. What are you kidding?
MPS is
I
Batman.
want to be the Dark Knight.
You want to be. You want the top
Caped
job.
Crusader.
You want the top
I
job.
want to meet with Commissioner Gordon and slide down the bat pole and all the rest of it.
What if they said, Michael Patrick, we're going to make you the Joker? What would you think?
No.
No.
I am the Batman.
How about the Riddler?
I'm Batman.
You're the answer man.
That too.
That's right. So Batman. Well, this would really be terrific. The Michigan Film Office now has neither confirmed nor denied the speculation in the movie, as you know.
They shot the last one in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know that. But in
Detroit
any
is
event,
better.
if
I
you
would stand on top of that train station down there.
Yeah.
You know that dilapidated train station there near Corktown? I'd stand right on the corner on the top of the building in my cape and cowl and look down over where it used to be Tiger Stadium and over by the MGM Grand Casino and all the way up there to Cass Tech High School and then over to Ford Field and all the way down along the riverfront too, and just survey all that is mine.
Wouldn't that be terrific? Well, if you did
As
end
the
up
Dark
getting
Knight.
the gig, Christian Bale would have to find something else to do.
Oh, no, we don't want him. Only I can protect the metropolis. Well, no, that's Superman territory. Gotham
Close enough.
of Detroit.
I think, just imagine the money and the
I could
spin-off of
swoop
all
down.
this.
I could be an international Batman and swoop down from the top of the General Motors headquarters, fly all the way over to the Blue Cross building, Blue Cross Blue Shield building there by Greektown.
Yes.
And then swoop back all the way over to Windsor. See what's going on over there.
And when you drive around, you could get a vehicle from Cheryl Freeborough at Hyundai, and you'd be all set.
No, the Batmobile. Well, the Batmobile has to be a Cadillac, I think. Or was that a Lincoln he drove? Lincoln or Cadillac?
It is true. It's got to be.
It's got to have tail fins.
Well, it better be built
Cadillac.
in Detroit. It better be. It better be American made.
All right.
That's the important thing. All right.
MPS is
Batman.
the Batman. Boy, I wanted to be ambassador to Ireland. Now I'm not sure. Would I rather be Batman or United States ambassador to Ireland? I've got some thinking to do. Ken Dallafor, NFL veteran on the weird playoffs this weekend, and much, much more. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Or is it Bruce Wayne on Monday? "23 minutes after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields' legislative activity in the United States House of Representatives postponed this week because of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords' shooting in Tucson that shocked the nation, and the ripple effect continues. Daniel Stone, a senior reporter at Newsweek's Washington Bureau, covers national politics and obviously is involved in the story as well. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Mike Patrick.
I don't know, what's the question to ask about this? There's so many different ways to approach it, and you always have an interesting spin at Newsweek magazine. You have a full-on take because you have the luxury of publishing once a week. It gives you time to consider. What is the question that we should be asking?
I think the immediate question when looking at this is what does this say about our politics? What does this say about the rhetoric that's been used in our country, especially over the past couple of years as things have gotten incredibly heated? I think people have been very quick to jump to the blame game and say, this person or so-and-so is responsible, this person used this kind of speech. And then I think it's important to realize that this was a very deranged individual who was unlike any, political group in this country, unlike a Tea Party group, unlike, any group on the left. And really notice that, yes, things may have gotten out of hand, but perhaps no one really is to blame other than someone who was clearly very mentally disturbed.
Well, at his age, 22, is that right?
Yes.
I know a lot of 22-year-olds who don't even know who their congressperson is and won't for another decade. You know what I'm saying? So
right, exactly.
We don't know yet, but it's fair to assume that he had some political awareness, right?
Yeah, what we know about him, and remember, there's a trail of a couple of YouTube videos. There was his MySpace page and a couple other writings online. This was someone engaged in the political process. He had been to congressional events before. He had actually been to a prior event hosted by Representative Giffords. Mm-hmm. And then this time he went to meet her and presumably give her a piece of his mind and was told to wait and come back later because of a long line. That presumably did not make him happy, and he returned, and we know the outcome of that. So he knew what she was doing, but he had these grand ideas of what Congress was doing that were far beyond anything that Congress was actually doing. He had concerns about Congress, controlling people's minds, Congress trying to control national grammar, clearly something beyond, anything reasonable that the U.S. government could have been expected to do. So there was that political awareness, but it also went a bit further than any of us could reasonably expect from our government.
Do you know, 2 years, was it a year ago? I think it was, at the Detroit Regional Chamber Policy Conference on Mackinac Island. Bart Stupak was there, the congressman at the time, and he was the Democrat from the Upper Peninsula, but he's the swing vote on the health care, right?
Right.
And he got threats because they thought that he sold out to Obama and so forth. And the talk was that he was wearing a bulletproof jacket around Mackinac Island, and it became all the scuttlebutt that he had some Capitol security with him and that sort of thing. And everybody kind of scoffed a little bit. But Pete Hoekstra is going to join us later, and he's been saying for a while now that members of Congress are exposed when they go back to their districts, unlike they are, there's better security in Washington, D.C., but once they go home, they're on their own.
That's absolutely true, and I believe, and I cannot blame Representative Stupak for having done that. And I think this is, in some ways, a watershed moment. I think it's every member of Congress is going to take a look at the kind of events that they do, especially in their district. Especially after the elections last year that were very heated in terms of the rhetoric, and that's good in a democracy. But some of the speech may have gotten out of hand, and I think it might be now a lot harder to go meet your congressperson at an outdoor event or at an event where you could just walk up and meet them. I think the Capitol Police at this time is taking stock of, does every member of Congress need security? Every member of Congress is asking whether privately or publicly funded, am I safe with my constituents? Am I safe just walking around? I think this has negative implications for accessibility of government, and that ultimately is, I don't think, such a great thing in a democracy when these people are going to start roping themselves off, and probably for good reason.
Well, remember, too, a few months ago, Senator Levin, U.S. Senator, got hit with a pie here in the state of Michigan, and I guess, in some respects, people thought that was funny, but, I mean, it's a pie. It could have been a gun.
Exactly. The instinct with that event was to laugh it off, but, yeah, a pie or a gun, all these people have the intent to do some of these people harm, and every member of Congress is thinking about that now. I know in the hours after this tragic event, a lot of them, were sitting at home. A lot of them were concerned about their safety, wondering, of course, if this was, not just an isolated event, and really taking stock of what it means to be a public official now, what it means to put yourself out there, put your voting record out there, and your reputation out there, knowing that there will always be people who don't agree with you, and hoping that their agreements are just policy disagreements, and it doesn't extend beyond that.
Some people, though, are blaming the rhetoric of Sarah Palin in some cases for this kind of reaction. Is there any direct connection?
I mean, there's direct connection in the way that, she has used some rhetoric. She used, of course, crosshairs in a graphic that targeted Representative Giffords. But remember, political speech has for a very long time included many gun metaphors. People talk about targeting an individual, swinging back or, firing back. There's so many metaphors, and kind of this military speech is so useful because sometimes, campaigning feels like battle. That's essentially what it is, going to battle against a person or another team. I think she regrets, and I think it was unfortunate, some of the rhetoric she used, but I think it's a much bigger stretch, somewhat unfair, to link her, as responsible to this. Again, this was a very deranged person. We don't know yet if he bought into Ms. Palin's rhetoric or if he bought into, any Tea Party group or any group on the left or right. Maybe we all need to tone it down, but I don't think anyone's clearly to blame for what happened.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll read about it in Newsweek magazine. Greatly appreciate your time this morning.
Sure thing.
Daniel Stone in Washington for Newsweek magazine. Now they're going to have a national championship football game in Arizona tonight. You can bet there will be a moment of silence, I'm certain, for the people who lost their lives in that shooting. And then the game will begin. It's number 1 Auburn taking on number 2 Oregon in Arizona in Glendale. We'll hear from Pat Pritchard a little bit later from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, who played for the Auburn Tigers, and he's going to give us a War Damn Eagle live from Arizona. Now, also, Cam Newton says they want to win this championship for the entire Auburn nation.
I mean, it's evident. People on this team know we have a chance to do something great. And we're not just playing for ourselves. We're playing for so many people that doesn't have the opportunity to play, but take the pride of Auburn, and wear it every single day.
Ken Dallafleur, who played for the Lions, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Michigan Panthers. He's a senior vice president with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. On the other end of our line, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Michael Patrick.
I think the strangest thing about the playoffs this weekend is the only home team that won was the one with the 7-9 record that everybody said shouldn't host a playoff game.
It was an interesting weekend. Not only that, the 3 of the 4 teams that were favored lost.
Yeah.
So when you look at that and you look at the home field advantage, how do you pick if those were your 2 criteria to lean to?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned how do you pick, because how did we do in our picks from Friday? Do you remember who went where?
I was 2 of 4, Michael. I had I had Green Bay as a winner, and I had the Ravens as a winner.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned the Seahawks. I thought we were going to do something goofy and win, but I didn't pick them. I picked the Saints. So I was 2 of 4. How about your list?
Well, I think I picked the Eagles. I'm sure of that. And I think I picked the Chiefs. I'm sure of that. And then we both picked the Saints. And so that's a wash. And then the other game was, what was that? Who am I forgetting? Baltimore? No, I got the Kansas City game.
Chiefs. Ravens.
Then Seattle. Oh, the Jets. That was a fun game to knock. I picked the Jets.
Yes, you did.
That's
so
right.
I think you're 1 of 4 this weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. But
good thing we have day jobs, Michael. Not making this our livelihood.
You know what, though? It's going to be tough to have playoff games. It's nothing new, but we're looking at a lot of cold weather sites now. Chicago, New England. The game has got to be a lot different than normal when you're playing in temperatures in January that are 20 degrees, right?
It really is. I think it affects the offense and how you handle the ball, and then field position becomes a bigger factor because the elements of the weather play into down and distance and so on. So I think it's going to be interesting, and you never know what you're going to get when you show up at the stadium that day, if it's going to be sunny or it's going to be snowing in a blizzard.
Yeah, Baltimore's got to play at Pittsburgh. Oh, Atlanta's a dome game anyway, so that is good for them. But New England's going to host and Chicago's going to host, so we're going to see some pretty chilly games. And we'll be picking again on Friday. And what do you think? What surprised you the most this weekend? I think that Seattle winning was a big surprise.
I think Seattle winning. I was a bit surprised with the Jets as well, because you just don't see them beating Peyton Manning in his home stadium, but they did a nice job defensing him. And then I think that the surprise too was the Eagles. I would say the Packers played well, but somehow the Eagles just didn't step up to the challenge.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say, however Vic goes is how the fortune of the Eagles goes, and that the Packers are a bit more just kind of buttoned up, a little more tight. And then we're going to see how far they can go in the playoffs. And we'll get our predictions from you on Friday. You're obviously leading the Super Bowl chase.
So far, Michael, you and I will hopefully have a winning record at the end of this thing.
All right, and we hope Ndamukong Suh gets well soon. I understand he's going to have surgery on his is it his shoulder that he's having surgery on, and he's not going to play in the Pro Bowl after all. So
they were a little tight to the vest with which shoulder it was and what the issues were.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing for him to step out right now, get that done, get back to work as soon as he can, healthy, and then maybe he'll take that Batman role on, as you were describing. You know, Ndamukong Suh could be flying from building to building. Right.
Thank you very much. Travel safely, and we'll talk Friday with the next NFL predictions from Ken Delafor, Senior Vice President, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, but he's an NFL veteran. He played for the Steelers, was drafted by the Steelers, and I bet he's going to pick the Steelers next weekend, but we'll wait and see. 35 after the hour, Michael Patrick Shields will go to downtown Detroit for the North American International Auto Show as soon as we get back. Speaking of having our foot on the gas, Margaret Brooks is with us. Margaret Brooks is the marketing director for Chevrolet, and obviously the North American International Auto Show is going to bring in people from around the world for press days, and then the black tie Friday night, and then open to the public on Saturday. Good morning to you, Margaret Brooks. How are you?
Nice to be talking to you.
Are you on the show floor right now, or in your office at Chevrolet, or where are you?
I am in Cobo Center, and you can just feel the excitement of the auto show here.
Going to pack it into 2 days, as I understand. There used to be a 3-day preview, now only 2 days. Do you know why?
I just think that, it's been a lot more efficient for all the journalists coming in to be able to, give them an opportunity to see everything in a couple days now. So, it's going to be busy days, but I think we're all up for it.
Did I hear a few months ago that the edict from Chevrolet and from the marketing department was that you have to say Chevrolet from now on? You don't want to be Chevy anymore. Is that true? And if so, why?
It's interesting. A lot of debate about that, and I think where we really net it out is, people give, people and brands nicknames, and it's really a sign of affection. And, if a customer wants to call us Chevrolet, that's fine. And if they want to call us Chevy, that's fine too. We just want them really to think about, Chevy or Chevrolet first and foremost.
But you, as a company, will be saying Chevrolet, not Chevy.
No, I think we've kind of relaxed that a little bit.
Oh, you have?
And yeah, and again, much like we might with our own kids, we might use both of them, and again, both are okay and appropriate for different situations.
I read this morning that as everybody tries to get some attention there, obviously, that Ford is announcing the Ford Focus Electric, and they're planning to have something like 2 or 3 different electric vehicles out by 2013. Everybody's coming after the Chevy Volt model. In the Ford case, it'll be just electric, not gas as well. But is that sort of imitation flattery or flat-out competition?
We know that, alternative energy vehicles really are the future, and I think Chevy's off to a great start with the all-new Volt. It really is a game changer with, as a range-extending electric vehicle. We're just launching it now, and, we don't want to be talking about what we're doing a couple years from now. What we really want to do is focus on what the customer can go into the showroom and buy now. We're just getting launched with our Volt, and, that's really our focus for the moment with, electric vehicles is to have a car that customers can, we can get on the road right now. So, yeah, a lot of discussion, but that's where we're focused.
Pardon the pun with the focus there, right? You're focused on Chevy Volt.
Absolutely.
If you drive from anywhere in the state of Michigan to this glamorous North American International Auto Show in Detroit starting Saturday, and you go to the Chevrolet stand, what will you see? What are the bells and whistles?
There is so much activity happening at the Chevy stand. First of all, we'll have the all-new Chevy Sonic small car, which we are revealing today for the first time. That's a small car with segment-leading features that really challenge preconceived notions of what a small car can be. But there's also so much more. We'll have the new Camaro convertible, which is going to be going into production, later this month. We'll have the Chevy Volt and the Chevy Cruze, which are just launching right now. Plus the rest of the Chevrolet lineup, a great line of crossovers with Equinox and Traverse. Great full-size trucks, that really lead their classes with Silverado, the new Silverado HD, Tahoe, Suburban. And then, now really when the customer goes to the Chevy line, they're going to see a great portfolio of passenger cars. Malibu continues to be a really, really strong entry for us. And then the line is completed with, Cruze, like I said, that just went on sale, and then now the smaller Chevy Sonic. So really, there's something for everybody at the Chevy display.
Okay, we'll see you down at the show. Thank you very much. Enjoy the reveal today of the Sonic, and we will talk again soon. Always like to keep in touch with our Michigan automakers, and certainly General Motors and Chevrolet is one of them. Dave in Dimondale, got a minute for you here. I know that you have usually much more to say, but what's cooking?
Well, I'm listening about this Tucson incident, and everybody seems to be wondering where this young man got his politics. And I would put out there that it sounds to me like he got them from the movies. Talk about government mind control and black ops and on and on. It just sounds to me like he overextended what he's seeing at the movies, and I don't hear anybody mentioning that. It seems like they're all trying to. Everybody mentions the Tea Party, and that there's no affiliation that they've been able to find with the Tea Party. So it makes it. It appears to me that they're just not looking at all the options. And the option B, this guy sees a movie and he interprets it into real life, and they say he's mentally deranged, which would indicate maybe he can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. And maybe that's where they need to look. And then with the gun situation, sounds to me like there was a breakdown there. Everybody's now saying, he's kicked out of a community college because he was so disruptive, and there was some gal on there said she was afraid he was going to come in with a gun someday and shoot the college up. And yet after they kicked him out, then he went and bought a 9mm Glock.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to talk with Brian Morley about, who comes from law enforcement, is what classifies as being qualified to buy a gun in the first place. Dave in Dimondale, it's Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash. 10 minutes now before the hour. Michael Patrick Shields. Legislative activity in the U.S. House of Representatives postponed this week after the shooting of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and the death of a number of people nearby there, including a 9-year-old girl and a federal judge. Brian Morley is an attorney with Frazier, Tabilcock, Davis, and Dunlap, and has a law enforcement background. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. How are you?
Okay. Will we see, do you think, the death penalty in this matter? Is it warranted?
You know, it's awful early. My own personal opinion, it sure sounds like it's warranted. As you know, we don't have the death penalty in Michigan, so I'm not overly familiar with what goes into it, but I know that the heinous nature of all the acts and the fact there are multiple acts would suggest that it'll most certainly be contemplated at this stage or pretty soon.
Is there, I mean, this is a dumb question because nobody expects something like this, but as a member of Congress and a federal judge and the people who are around those types of people, is there anything they could do to, I mean, short of having Secret Service protection, to stop becoming a victim of something like this?
Well, you know, I was actually thinking the same thing, and I think the U.S. Marshal Service works with at least the federal judges, and then I'm not sure as to Secret Service, but unfortunately that's where we're getting. It sounds like the Congresswoman was having, what was it called, Congress on the Corner, which is a nice way of getting out and being able to meet your Congress people, and the fact that there was a federal judge there makes it a nice gathering. But unfortunately, it's just like everything else, that security's going to have to get tighter and tighter, and I would imagine that Congress is going to address this immediately. But in the short term, could there have been? Sure, but at the same time, as we all know from prior tragedies, when you end up dealing with people like this, I don't know that there's really that much you can do.
There will be people now who will be calling for reform of gun laws. And in the article that I'm reading in Politico, it talks about the fact that maybe people with a history of mental instability, like the shooter, should not be allowed to buy a gun. I don't know. I guess I'm naive. I don't know how it works, but I didn't know if you had mental instability, you were able to buy a gun. Can you?
Well, mental instability is such a broad statement. It really is, and I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. And dealing with, if we're going to try and modify gun laws, Arizona is, boy, it's an interesting place to try it. You know, what constitutes mental instability? Is it, you know, I acted a little odd about 6 months ago, but now I'm on medication, or something to that effect, and then you run into serious constitutional implications. So my personal opinion is it's getting way ahead of ourselves. I think, in my opinion, anybody that wants to buy a gun can buy a gun. I think that's embedded in our society. I personally don't think it'll ever change, but that's just my personal opinion.
Interesting. We'll keep in touch with you along the way as more details become available, and we sure appreciate it this morning, Brian.
Nice talking to you. Have a good morning.
You too. All the best. That's Brian Morley, Frazier, Tabilcock, Davis, and Dunlap, PC. It is 6 minutes now before the hour on the night of the National College Football Championship. If you subscribe to such things, it's number 1 versus number 2. Auburn versus Oregon tonight in Glendale, Arizona. Jeff Goebel is with us. It's hard to believe, but it's here already again, and there's no getting around it. He's the director of instruction for the Kendall Academy of Golf here in Michigan. The PGA Tour was back in action yesterday. The Hyundai Tournament of Champions there at Kapalua on Maui, that beautiful place where they always start the season. And wouldn't you know it, it went down to sudden death. Jonathan Bird and Robert Garrigus. And Garrigus missed a 3-footer on the second playoff hole, according to Jordan McCarlton, who's with us here, to lose that tournament. And Jeff Goebel, he might come to you today scratching his head and say, how could I miss a 3-footer to tie for the in the playoff hole? What would you say to that?
Probably mental toughness.
I mean, he's one of the finest players in the world, one of the top 1%, and he can go there now and probably make that 3-footer 700 times in a row, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have students.
You know, he made his share of putts over the week too. You know, it's he was I think ranked 11th in putting for the week, which is pretty good for him. He's been in the 80s, I think, ranked on tour for the year last year. So he definitely had a good week of putting. But just under the pressure, you know what happened to him back at Memphis. That was pretty well touted. So he had quite a breakdown there. But, you know, how many guys can make a 3-4 foot putt to win $1 million?
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
Where is your facility? And if he were to come knocking at your door, what would you tell him to do? Because a lot of people here are missing 3-footers and not winning or losing $1 million, just losing their patience.
Yeah, that was it. I think he rushed it a little bit. You know, he just got out of his routine. That was the big part, and he was probably just didn't have the focus that he needed at the time. I think the first putt that he hit, because it went so far back, I think he maybe thought that he had to make that because Jonathan had that same putt 15, 20 minutes before that. Mm-hmm. So I think he hit that one a little bit extra hard, and the next thing you know, he's got to stand over it to tie again, and that was tough.
So where can we find you to keep the winter chill away?
Well, we're at the Great Lakes Golf Center in Auburn Hills, Joslyn Road and I-75, and also Miles of Golf in Ann Arbor on Carpenter Road and 23.
Okay, you can go practice your putting and your shots there, too, because they have a dome where the ball comes up out of the ground. You don't even have to place it where it's automatic. And Jeff Goebel is there, the Director of Instruction for the Kendall Academy. Very well respected. 3 minutes before the hour, Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash. Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Monday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields this morning covering the story that stopped the nation on Saturday and put us all into a bit of a state of shock, a big state of shock, in fact. A member of Congress shot in Tucson, Arizona while doing a Meet the Congresswoman sort of event. We get an update right now, the latest on that story from Terry Moore.
The Tucson tragedy shook Congress to its core.
An attack on one who serves is an attack on all who serve.
Republican House Speaker John Boehner.
Such acts of violence have no place in our society.
Needless to say, congressional leaders and Capitol Police will be spending a lot of time this week analyzing security.
All of us in our roles in service to our fellow citizens comes with a risk.
Security is provided to the top members of the congressional leadership chain, but it would be extremely difficult to assign full-time protection to the more than 500 rank-and-file lawmakers in the House and the Senate. I'm Terry Moore in Washington.
And we'll talk with former Congressman Pete Hoekstra, who has worried for a long time about security of members of Congress when they're outside of Washington, D.C. Now, the Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot in the head, critically wounded at that public event in Tucson. 6 other people, including a 9-year-old girl and a federal judge, were slain. And that federal judge, John M. Roll, has unnerved lots of his colleagues and friends and public officials, and those of us who don't even know them. He was a leading judge responsible for Arizona's U.S. District Court, and the headline is "A Beloved Federal Judge." And this morning, nobody knows that better than Nancy Palmer McKeague, the wife of the Honorable David McKeague, who knew him, Justice Roll, very well. Good morning, and thank you for being available.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
I can't imagine what that would feel like to hear that somebody that you knew very well was murdered in cold blood like that. When did you get the news, and what was your reaction?
I happened to hear it on the radio on Saturday afternoon. David and I, ironically, had just come home from a funeral, and we heard about Congresswoman Giffords. And when I came home, I mentioned that to David, and just a few minutes later, the phone rang for him, and it was the head of the Marshal Service calling to tell him about John Roll. And David can tell you, he's on the line as well, can tell you, better than I can what his reaction was. But I've always worried about David's safety, but more when he was on duty than in a circumstance like John was that day. So David can tell you more about the call that he received.
Your Honor, if you would, please. I hate to talk about a subject like this, somebody that you knew well. They're calling him beloved in Arizona, appointed originally by George Herbert Walker Bush. Tell me about the now late Justice John Roll.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. He was, as the news have said, really a wonderful man. Nancy and I had an opportunity to first meet him in 1994. We were attending a program in Washington at the National Cathedral called Religion and the Law. And if you recall back, that was the last really sea change in politics under the contract with America, when back then Republicans really swept into power. We were there on election night and the days thereafter, and there were only 2 or 3 of us that had been appointed by George Bush 41.
Mm-hmm.
So we were pretty excited about how the election had turned out, and it really formed a bond from that conference and continued to stay in contact over the remaining years. The Arizona court is a really, really busy court because of the immigration problems, so they have solicited regularly judges around the country to come help them, and I was honored to do that a few years later at the invitation of Judge Roll, and we continue to stay in contact. He is a dedicated family man, very religious guy, kind, considerate. He's really everything that you're reading about in the paper.
Also reading that he accepted a late invitation to attend that informal public meeting. It was a spur-of-a-moment decision that sent him into the parking lot of his neighborhood shopping center and into an ambush that took his life and the lives of 5 others. Just the shock of hearing that news, however you did on the radio and also by telephone, must have just been staggering on Saturday.
It really was. I had assumed that there was some sort of official program. I think I mentioned to Nancy that it probably was some sort of an immigration or a naturalization program, and as it turned out to find out, it was just senseless, random violence, made it even harder to really understand and accept.
Well, we're very sorry for your loss and grateful that you would spend a minute sort of introducing the now late Justice John Roll to us, those of us who never met him or didn't know anything about him. And so in that regard, we certainly appreciate your strength this morning, and God bless you and Nancy, and I know I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is Nancy Palmer McKeague and her husband, the Honorable Federal Judge David McKeague, this morning, who were close and friends with John Roll. It's 14 minutes after the hour now when you hear about shocking events like that. Makes you take stock of where you are in this world and whether you have your house in order. And Carol Kane, who writes for the Free Press and hosts the TV show Michigan Matters, will be covering the North American International Auto Show this week, had a scare over the holidays, over the New Year break, and is on the line to tell us about it. She's written about it in the Free Press as well. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, Michael Patrick. Boy, serious things really do bring back to home what really matters, doesn't it?
What happened to you? You were flying, ironically, to Arizona.
I was flying to Arizona on December 30th to Phoenix, and flight was normal up until about halfway through when I noticed at about 33,000 feet that it was awfully quiet all of a sudden. And the pilot came on to say one of the engines was not performing, and we had to make an emergency landing, which was scary enough. And then we had to go to Colorado Springs, which is not a big airport. That was my first clue that something was really seriously wrong here, because I would rather have gone to Denver, a bigger airport, but we went there. And we had to wait 25 minutes till we got there, and as it turned out, it was a serious situation. We had to all, after we landed, be told we're leaving via the emergency chute exits and leave your things and go. We did. I went down that the first time I did it, and apparently everybody else on the plane, including the pilot and crew, as it turned out. Some people were injured along the way coming down the chute. There were ambulances. There were fire trucks. It was guys in hazmat suits surrounding the plane, and when we landed, the stewardess told us to run because there was a fire, so we ran.
Oh.
And literally, as soon as we got in, it took us about an hour from that point to go out into the field, wait for buses to take us back in small groups. As soon as we got back to the terminal, a few snowflakes started. Next thing, a full-blown blizzard underway, so we were there for hours more. Planes couldn't come in or get out, and it was the trip from not a trip you want to necessarily, better to talk about than be on, if you know what I mean. But it worked out.
What was the last 20? You said 25 minutes from the announcement till the time you landed. What was the mood like on board, and what did you do with those 25 minutes?
You know, in fact, the thing that I found interesting was this: 25 minutes is like an eternity. It seemed like it was about 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was very quiet. I don't know if you recall that movie Airplane, where they're told they're making an emergency landing, and everybody starts going crazy and hanging off the roof of the plane and going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It was quiet. People weren't talking. Everyone kind of looked to each other for assurance and what have you. I'm a nervous flyer, I'll admit, at the start. So I just started thinking about, okay, I would like to call my mom, and obviously at 33,000 feet, your phone's not going to work. And what I would tell her, and ironically, Michael Patrick, talking about just kind of weird things, I thought about my mom had been in the hospital last year, and I recall visiting her one time where her roommate looked up from me at the hospital and said, "You have an angel with you," which I thought, okay, they must be giving her some really good drugs. And I thought of that story for some reason. And anyways, when it was all said and done, I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe that lady wasn't so crazy after all. Maybe there was an angel in our wing that helped get us all the way into Phoenix safely.
When you went down, you went down the chute and you stood in the field for an hour. It must have been very cold in Colorado.
It's very cold. Again, we had a big snowstorm there. It was huge. There were like 250 people on this plane. We sat there, and again, it was one of those things. They told us to leave our stuff. There were people out there in bare feet. They said, leave your things. Oh, don't take your purse. Don't take your laptops. Leave them. We'll be back. And I didn't even notice it. Everyone was just kind of state of shock, literally, because we no sooner landed than she jumped up and said, leave your things. We're going. The door flew open, and I was about 4 rows back from the 4 chutes off the plane. I was about 4 rows back. I sat there for it seemed like about 10 minutes deciding, do I take my purse or not? Do I take my purse or not? Because I don't leave home without my purse.
Right.
And so I left it just because I thought, I don't want to have some FAA agent at the bottom there arresting me for not listening to the rules or whatever.
Oh, what a
So
scary...
it was a long thing. And the other thing I'll tell you, going down the chute, it's not like the water slide at Cedar Point or something like that. It was a straight drop, and I don't even remember. I just know I was going so fast, and I hit the ground hard, and 2 guys in hazmat suits literally just kind of threw you off to keep you going because there are people right behind you.
Well, thank God you're okay, and you can read about it at freep.com, and I know we'll be talking again later this week, thank God, but wow, that must have been seriously frightening. 18 minutes after the hour, that's Carol Kane. I'm Michael Patrick Shields. We're back in a flash. New Governor Rick Snyder gets an early chance to put his stamp on the Michigan Supreme Court. He will appoint a judge to replace Justice Maura Corrigan at a news conference this morning. Snyder was sworn in, as you know, on January 1st, and he will make his announcement at 9 a.m. Outgoing Justice Corrigan became the director of the Department of Human Services, which oversees welfare and foster care issues. And so there are several judges of the Michigan Court of Appeals who have been named as possible successors to Corrigan. They include Christopher M. Murray, a former Wayne County Circuit Judge in Detroit. He served as a deputy legal counsel to Governor John Engler. And some others. We'll leave the speculation behind because we'll know in a very short time. And tomorrow morning we'll talk to the new justice that Rick Snyder appoints to the Michigan Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the incoming Secretary of State inaugurated on that same day, January 1st, just a couple of blocks from where we are at the state capitol. Ruth Johnson is with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Rick Snyder on this program and in other places has said that he wants to operate in dog years, his staff, that move very quickly, and that he wants to get a lot done really quickly. And I just wonder, in your role as Secretary of State, do you want to have that same sort of rapid shock and awe sort of strategy?
Well, the faster we get it done, the better it is for the people. So, yes, we're trying to move as fast as we can forward with election integrity and partnering with the public and private sectors. We also have an election coming up for about half of the counties in the state, February 22nd. And we're also starting the driver responsibility courses, which is something that was put in place by Terry Lynn Land on her last day, that will allow people to take a course to get rid of a couple points off their driver's license. The only people that are eligible are ones that the Secretary of State's office contacts.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was driving to Detroit yesterday and on 96, and someone was in front of me, and they kept swerving and swerving, and I thought, uh-oh, I better get away from this car. Something's going on here. Maybe that, who knows? So I made a wide pass, and can you believe the young woman was reading the newspaper?
No.
Well,
oh my
she
God.
was driving the car, and I thought, never mind texting. You know, you're in the middle of the funny papers or whatever it is you're reading while you're driving. It's astonishing what goes on on the roadways out there. But how does this driver responsibility course work?
Well, it can only be used for relatively minor infractions. Somebody that's going slightly over the speed limit, improper passing, disobeying a stop sign. They'll get a notice from the Secretary of State's office. We'll notify them, and they have to have a good record before they can even participate in this. Then they will be allowed, if they want to take a course. There's some online, or there's some that you can attend either way. And they'll have 60 days to pass it, and if they do, then those points will not count on their driver's license, and of course that always helps with insurance bills.
You still pay the fine, though?
You do.
And does it cost anything to take the course?
Up to $100.
Okay, so in some cases, a couple of points is worth $100, right?
Oh, absolutely. When you get your insurance bill, there's no doubt about it. For many people, it will be worth it.
So how many points is a minor speeding offense?
I think 2 points or less.
Okay.
And then they'll be able to take this course, and it will just make sure that whoever takes it, it kind of beefs up all the different safety regulations and laws that people often sometimes accidentally disobey, or, you know, some people, a Michigan roll, they call it, at a stop sign. Just brings things to people's minds so that they realize what they need to do to be good, safe drivers.
How many years do you have in between? Do you have to take a test to renew your driver's license in between?
8 years.
8 years. And you do that, do you think in the future we'll be able to take that test online as opposed to at the Secretary of State's office?
We're looking at everything we can. We want to put as much technology as we can, because it does save people the drive to the office and wait in the line. So we're looking, everything's on the table. What can we partner with the public and private sector, and what can we put online to save people from having to come to the Secretary of State's office?
Of course, you have to have an eye test anyway, don't you? I mean, so you'd have to turn up for that, at least in the current technology, I would think. They test your eyes every 8 years, don't they?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. But when people, the immediate question that I would have, but I know the answer because I've asked it before, is how can you take it online? How do you know that the person is actually paying attention to the class when it comes online?
Well, that's on the honor system, obviously, and you have to pass the course too. So if you don't pass it, then you won't have those points removed. So it can be taken as many times as needed within that time period, but you have to pass the course.
I think there are prompts built in too along the way to make sure that you're actually there. In other words, click now to go to the next phase or something like that. It's amazing what we can do. And so drive safely. Will you be at the North American International Auto Show this week?
Oh, I wouldn't miss it. I think it's just a wonderful event for Southeast Michigan and for the state as a whole.
Yeah. What do you drive?
I drive a 9-year-old Buick Century. The only thing it's ever needed is tires and some filters. It's the best car I've ever had. And I'm looking at buying a new American car, hopefully this year.
Well, you know, it's very ironic because our next guest is Roger McCormick, who is the marketing director for Buick, and he's probably smiling from ear to ear to hear that testimonial from the Secretary of State.
Well, it gets great mileage, too, so it's been a wonderful car. It still runs really well. I hate to get rid of it, but I think with a lot of the driving that I'll need to be doing, I should probably get an all-wheel drive now.
Well, stay tuned for that. You'll do a little shopping at the auto show, and I know I'll see you there, and I know you won't be reading the paper on the drive over.
No, matter of fact, I think you should report someone that does that. That just puts everybody in danger, not just themselves, but all of us. So I would get the driver's license and have before reported people when I thought that they've been intoxicated. Just call the police and report it, and hopefully it won't happen again.
All right. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. We'll see you this week.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All the best to you. At 32 minutes after the hour, as I mentioned, Roger McCormick from Buick. You can't buy that kind of publicity, can you, sir?
Absolutely not. You know, you mentioned smiling ear to ear. I was smiling over here, and we've got a replacement vehicle for her Century. We're introducing the Verano at the show today, the Buick Verano, our new compact entry into the market. And other than that, if she wanted to go a little bigger, we've got a Regal, a LaCrosse. So we've got a lot of momentum at Buick, and we've introduced some great cars. And I was thinking about getting an order sheet out and getting some contact information from you.
I'm sure you know where to find her. The Buick is introducing a compact car, you say, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best way to describe it is it really delivers the character and attributes of a LaCrosse, right? People are becoming more and more familiar with the LaCrosse, and it delivers on, its beautiful styling, craftsmanship, refinement, premium amenities, and then so doing all that, but in a compact car package. So, we really raised the bar with LaCrosse. I would say even LaCrosse and Regal and Enclave, a lot of times we've surprised people in the past. Once we've introduced them to the new Buick and the new cars and crossovers that we bring to market now, they're surprised by the refinement, the craftsmanship, and the refinement in the cars. And so that, in a way, that raises the bar. And with the Verano, the expectation is going to be all that is there, and it is. So, we're really excited about expanding or broadening the Buick base, going to an all-new customer with the Verano.
I'm very curious to see it when I get down there because when I think of Buick, I don't think of Buick in terms of a compact car. You've got very comfortable, stylish cars. I've had 3 Buicks now in a row, and I just don't think of it as compact. I mean, compact cars, for the most part, are across the board dowdy, aren't they?
I think the cars that are in the market today will offer a unique proposition. I mean, you really touched on part of our challenge, but we're really anxious to take on that challenge, and that is to get people to think of Buick in a whole new way. Some of the attributes you just mentioned about how Buicks are thought of, those are still in the cars. In other words, the quality is still there, the quiet, the idea of delivering a very quiet car, and with a really nice ride. That's still all there, but now in a compact package, and so it's going to be a lot more spirited, a lot more nimble, if you think of it that way. And then also delivering on some things that people maybe haven't thought of Buick in the past, and that is, gorgeous styling, superior craftsmanship and refinement that I mentioned before. And the best proof point, I would say, is really we point to the LaCrosse. And the LaCrosse has been done extremely well for us, been very well received, whether it's anecdotally, things we hear from neighbors, and whether it's research we've done on the cars, the feedback we get back, or it's just whether people are voting with their wallets in the sales.
How much will the Verano cost, speaking of wallets?
Yeah, we haven't announced a price. The best way to think about it is if you think about the compact segment and the compact Lux segment, we're going to be comfortably positioned in between those two segments, so deliver premiumness and luxury, but add a value to some of the key compact luxury cars that are out there.
I'll see you at the show. It's always good to talk to Buick. We love them around these parts in the state of Michigan. Roger McCormick is the marketing director for Buick, and I'm Michael Patrick Shields. 20 minutes before the hour, Michael Patrick Shields. Aaron Rodgers, 3 touchdown passes. His first career playoff win. The Packers beat the Eagles 21-16 yesterday in Philadelphia. And isn't it ironic that Joe Flacco completed 25 of 34 passes and a pair of touchdowns? The Ravens beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. In fact, the only wild card team to win at home this weekend was the one that everybody said shouldn't be hosting a home playoff game, the Seattle Seahawks. They went into the playoffs at 7-9 with a losing record, and everybody said, they shouldn't even be in the playoffs, and for sure they shouldn't be hosting a playoff game at their place, and they took advantage of it and went ahead and beat the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints. That was 41-36 in a heck of a game. And then the Jets went into Indianapolis and beat Peyton Manning. It was a great weekend for the NFL. So I guess you could call that 3 upsets, and only 1 home team wins. Deion Sanders, Marshall Faulk, Jerome Bettis, and Curtis Martin are among the 15 finalists for the 2011 class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Let's root for Jerome Bettis, who we know is from the Detroit area, and it'd be sort of fun to see the bus in there. Red Wings are in Colorado tonight for a game against the Avalanche. Pistons are in Chicago today for a game against the Bulls. And the Michigan men's basketball team almost pulled an upset yesterday. They took the 3rd-ranked Kansas Jayhawks to overtime, but ended up losing 67-60. College football's national championship tonight, if you want to call it that, the BCS national championship anyway. And Auburn number 1 against Oregon number 2. That's in Glendale, Arizona. And it's the Tigers quarterback Cam Newton, when he isn't saying "War Damn Eagle," who says they want to win this championship for the whole Auburn nation.
I mean, it's evident. People on this team know we have a chance to do something great. And we're not just playing for ourselves. We're playing for so many people that doesn't have the opportunity to play, but take the pride of Auburn, and wear it every single day.
The PGA Tour was back in action this weekend, too. It was the Hyundai Tournament of Champions, and I'm sure that Cheryl Freeborough at Hyundai of Lansing was watching very closely, right? It was in primetime golf is what it was because of the time difference, and it went to a playoff between Jonathan Bird and Robert Garrigus, and it was hard to watch, but Garrigus missed almost a 3-footer on the second playoff hole there at Kapalua in Maui and lost to Jonathan Bird. Was it a choke? I don't know. Speaking of Cheryl Freeborough, I'm driving the 2010 Saturn Vue, test driving it right now, and it is like a brand new car. It's only got 8,500 miles. Brand new, it was $25,000. The Kelley Blue Book is $19,000, but you can get it for just over $18,000 at Hyundai of Lansing. It's a lot of fun to drive. You can see real well. It's got like a little SUV. It's the Saturn Vue, and if you're fond of the Saturn brand, this one will make you smile for sure. So just contact Cheryl Freeborough at Hyundai of Lansing, and you can take it away from me. They'll come right out in front of here in our storefront studio and snatch the thing from me, and then I'll test drive another one on Auto Show Week, the North American International Auto Show. Paul Birmingham is with us, the news director at 790 KNST in Arizona, where it's awfully early this morning, but I don't imagine very many people have slept since that dreadful tragedy down there in the Southwest. Good morning, and thanks for being available.
Good morning. Absolutely. It has indeed been a very, very tragic couple days here in Tucson. People still coming to grips, obviously, with what went on Saturday morning. Right now, we're all just sort of waiting as we expect another press briefing in about 3 hours on the condition of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. So hopefully there will be some good news. She remains in critical condition. She's been essentially in a medically induced coma, doctors doing so to help reduce the swelling in her brain. So at this point, it's still a wait and see. There is a little bit of good news in that she is the only patient of the 18 people who were shot, or rather 19 people who were shot, who remain in critical condition. The rest have been upgraded.
The last we heard from our standpoint that the doctors were optimistic. Is that still the case?
That's correct. It's brutal to talk about, and I apologize for that, but
Certainly.
The way that the doctors have described it is that the way that the bullet traveled through her brain, that it did limit some degree of damage in that it only stayed on the left side. There was no crossing of the hemispheres. So doctors say in bullet brain trauma, that does provide a degree of hope. Obviously, it's never, ever a good thing. That's an extreme understatement. But in this particular instance, she has been able to respond to commands like squeeze my hand or those types of commands. And that has been certainly some degree of comfort to those around her.
I understand as well that they call him a alleged shooter, but we know that he's the shooter, is going to appear in court today?
That's correct. He's 22-year-old Gerald Loeffner. He will be appearing in federal court, actually about 100 miles up the road in Phoenix. He's facing a number of charges. The story today is whether or not he will be getting a particular attorney. The attorney is from San Diego, a person by the name of Judy Clark, who actually was one of the people who served on the team defending Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh, as well as Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. So that is basically the story today. Also, the mental status of Mr. Loeffner, whether or not he will in fact plead something along the lines of that he did not know what he was doing, that he was in fact not acting as a rational individual. The Sheriff's Department has said that there may have been some mental issues, and in fact a school that he attended for a brief time, Pima Community College, also said that they did notice some issues that may lead someone to believe that he could be a danger to himself.
Well,
or others, in fact.
Therein comes the age-old dilemma. Somebody who is crazy enough to do that obviously is mentally imbalanced. Are they not? I guess we'll see how that shakes out. Thank you for being available so early this morning. We certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll keep you updated.
Paul Birmingham at 790 KNST in Tucson, Arizona. It's Michael Patrick Shields. 10 minutes now before the hour. You're listening in all parts of the state of Michigan, in Mount Pleasant, Petoskey, Traverse City, Hastings, Lansing, Saginaw, Manistee, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Ludington, Muskegon, and Benton Harbor. And you might be saying, well, why do I care about the North American International Auto Show? Well, number one, it's a huge event in the state of Michigan, in Detroit. And number two, the world comes here to see it. Last I heard, it was 2,000 international journalists who come and cover the auto industry, and they are there now on press days. And from what we understand, the message that automakers and dealers are hoping to sell when the doors open this Saturday is that, we're on the way back. A couple of years ago, there was a sort of an austerity feeling through the auto show. Things were tough and tight and slim, but maybe not so anymore. But let's go right into the auto show right now with Wes Raynal, is the editor of Auto Week magazine. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. What have you seen so far? And is that the case? Are we seeing a full-blooded auto show this year?
You stole all my thunder. You summed it up perfectly. I can hang up.
No. You're there. You know what's going on. You know all the celebrities that are running around and all the sexy reveals and all the rest of the glitz and the glamour, too, huh?
Today is day one. Porsche showed a coupe race car this morning at 6 a.m., and now everyone's in having breakfast with Porsche. So there's really not much happening until 8:40, but it's a full day of press conferences today, and that's the first time they've ever tried to jam them all into one day like this. They're basically 12 hours. They go till 6 o'clock tonight, so it's going to be a long day, and my feet will be sore by the end of it.
I would think so. Now, for those of us who have not been on the inside of a press day, when you say press conferences, we're talking about the CEO of various companies, right?
Right. The CEO of various companies will come out and talk. Now, sometimes car companies will show a new car, and sometimes they won't.
Mm-hmm.
To get back to what you said earlier, 2 years ago, this thing was like a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very gloom and doomy. Last year was a little better. This year, I can already tell it's going to be a little bit better, yet again. And it's, on the uptick, no question about it. And I'm not just talking about the domestics. It's everyone.
In the old days, you see video of a slip cover coming off of a car, the reveal, and you see it for the first time. But at the North American International Auto Show, we've seen things like cattle drives outside with the car. We've seen Jeeps coming over the tops of rocks and mountains and waterfalls and everything else. What's the most outrageous reveal that you remember seeing?
That cattle one was pretty crazy. And it all started, I'll never forget it, when the first Grand Cherokee was launched, they drove it through the plate glass window of Cobo Hall, and that was sort of the first salvo, for lack of a better word, of sort of the crazy reveal. Mm-hmm. And that, to this day, stands pretty high in my mind of reveals. Another really nice one was not necessarily crazy, but just elegant and very, very high class. I remember being at a Paris show a few years ago, and Porsche had an unveiling in the lobby of the Louvre Museum, and that was very cool. Mm-hmm. So, there's, like I said, it all started with that Grand Cherokee coming through the plate glass window there, 15 years ago.
Will there be any celebrities running around today with the reveals, too? That's one of the ways that companies get attention?
Yeah, sometimes. I don't know if you're familiar with that show, Detroit 187.
Yeah.
A couple of those guys were running around. Actually, last night I met one of the guys, Sean, a very, very nice guy who's really, it's kind of cool because they all say how much they like being here, like he bought a house in Royal Oak. So,
no kidding.
It's kind of cool from that standpoint, but I haven't seen too many yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep my eye out so that when we go on the air again later in the week, I can hopefully give you some names.
When you go through 15 or more press conferences today, like you say, it's going to be tough to pick a headline for Auto Week, isn't it?
Well, the good news is I don't have to do that by myself. I have a lot of help there today. And what's going to happen is that we'll meet as a group tonight at about 4:30, mm-hmm. and we pick 4 show highlights every year. We pick a best concept, best in show, most fun, and most significant. So we'll vote on those tonight. And what we've done at Auto Week for the first time since I've been here 22 years, we always ship on Mondays. We print the magazine and bind it and mail it on Mondays. This year, for the first time, we're doing it tomorrow because since every press conference is today, we saw that as an opportunity to get the entire show in to this issue that would have shipped today, but now we're shipping it tomorrow. So, long story short, we'll meet today at 4:30, 5 o'clock to pick our 4 highlight cars or trucks.
Well, that'll be fun. I look forward to getting the reveal of those tomorrow on this program from you and at Auto Week, the website and the newspaper too, the news magazine. Have fun down there and put your feet up tonight in downtown Detroit.
Yeah, I'm going to need a foot massage tonight, but we'll chat tomorrow.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate that. Wes Raynal, the editor of Auto Week magazine. Television viewers, we're going to say goodbye for today, but you can listen to us on the radio on 1240 a.m. in the Lansing area, or come back, everybody else, wherever you're listening, next hour.
Goodbye, good friends, goodbye, 'cause now it's time to go.